It came out that, surprise, surprise, the side that is obsessed lately, only lately, with free speech, now that it's come to Jimmy Kimmel being canceled, of course, and Stephen Colbert being canceled, they've decided they care about free speech, but only lately, because during the Biden regime, we never heard any of them say anything other than freedoms come with consequences. You know, you can't just say anything you want and expect to not face consequences. And it turns out that at that time they were saying that because their president, Joe Biden, was all about censorship. In an official statement, Alphabet, who's the parent company to Google and owns YouTube, therefore, had this to say. Senior Biden administration officials, including White House officials, conducted repeated and sustained outreach to Alphabet and pressed the company regarding certain user-generated content to the COVID-19 pandemic that did not violate its policies. Emphasis on did not. While the company continued to develop and enforce its policies independently, Biden administration officials continued to press the company to remove non-violative user-generated content. As online platforms, including Alphabet, grappled with these decisions, the administration's officials, including President Biden himself, created a political atmosphere that sought to influence the actions of platforms based on their concerns regarding misinformation. It is unacceptable and wrong when any government, including the Biden administration, attempts to dictate how the company moderates content, and the company has consistently fought against those efforts on First Amendment grounds. That's YouTube admitting it. What we all suspected to begin with, of course. I myself was a victim of this on one of my personal social media accounts because I was protesting the stupidity of the face diaper mandates. I never wore, well, I did wear it for a couple of weeks, and then I realized how stupid it was, and I ripped that off my face, and I refused to put them back on. And I was harassed, and I was persecuted for it, and I openly spoke out against it, along with all of the 3-week tested, jabs that they were pushing out there that I knew better than to get. And what happened? These social media platforms forced my account to remove the video. I couldn't keep it up. They didn't even bother restricting reach. They just said, this is dangerous. You're dangerous for this opinion, and we've removed your video. It is gone forever. And then after that, that social media account, despite it being a personal one that I didn't care about all that much to begin with, but I had built a small following on it, it didn't get any reach anymore. I was shadow banned. All of my posts went from gaining a couple hundred likes to 10, 12, 14, 16 likes per post. And went from gaining 3, 4, 500, 600 views per post, per reel, per video, to 15, 20, 30, 50 views at most per reel, per video. I experienced it myself. And a lot of these large creators I know were going through hell during this time. YouTube outright admits to having removed entire channels. This is courtesy of Representative Jim Jordan, who posted this on X. YouTube also admits the Biden administration censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong, confirms that the Biden administration wanted Americans censored for free speech that did not violate YouTube's policies, details when YouTube began rolling back its censorship policies on political speech after Judiciary GOP began its investigation, states that public debate should never come at the expense of relying on authorities. That's true. Promises to never use third-party fact-checkers, and warns that Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech. This is not something you're going to see reported on the mainstream liberal channels. You won't see this story on CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, or NBC. And if you do, it won't be going into these kind of details. They're going to gloss over it or ignore it altogether. That's why I'm reporting on it right here. Now, one of the good things to come out of all this, Alphabet would later go on to state, in contrast to other large platforms, YouTube has not operated a fact-checking program that identifies and compensates fact-checking partners to produce content to support moderation. YouTube has not and will not empower fact-checkers to take action on or label content across the company's services. This, of course, is good news. Nobody wants fact checkers. They've always been incredibly annoying, and we don't want them on YouTube or on any social media for that matter. However, This is the part where if you thought it was bad enough that the Biden administration, our own president, had his administration bullying these tech companies, these social media platforms to censor us and actually convince them to follow through on it. If you thought that was bad enough, this was also made in their statement, and it's very revealing about the warfare, the political warfare going on around the entire world when it comes to free speech. Take a listen to this. The committee has taken important investigative steps to highlight that obligations under laws such as the Digital Services Act and Digital Markets Act may stifle innovation and restrict access to information. These laws place a disproportionate regulatory burden on American companies, and the company has long expressed its concern about the risk that the DSA may pose to freedom of expression within and outside of the European Union, depending on how certain provisions may be enforced. Yes, what we're talking about here is the EU looking to restrict their own citizens' free speech and also being upset that their citizens can see our free speech still in effect. So what are they doing about it? Well, they go on to state the DSA could be interpreted in such a way as to require Alphabet and other providers of intermediary services to remove lawful content, jeopardizing the company's ability to develop and enforce global policies that support rights to free expression and access to information. The DSA may open avenues for substantive regulation of lawful speech, including through risk mitigation, the use of codes of conduct and crisis protocols, and the out-of-court dispute settlement mechanism. Alphabet remains mindful of these risks and continues to be vigilant in its defense of these rights. And so, in summary, the European Union wants to not only censor their own citizens' free speech on social media and limit the kind of posts that they can make, but they're not happy that Americans don't have those restrictions and that their own citizens might wind up stumbling across Americans who are unrestricted, and they want to mitigate risks when it comes to that. So they're trying to find clever ways now to force these companies to remove your posts if you make a post about the UK or the European Union that the European Union doesn't like. So they're literally waging war on our free speech. This is like warfare at this point. It's like digital warfare happening. All of this being exposed, like I said, all of it coming to light under, of course, the Trump administration. And President Donald Trump is on it when it comes to preventing this from happening, which is why at the beginning of his United Nations speech, he immediately addressed free speech being one of the most important freedoms to maintain for Western society to thrive. Tell me what your thoughts and opinions are on this, though. Are you disgusted like I am about this? How on earth, the arrogance, mind you, of these European Union leaders to openly plot on how to take away our rights and our freedoms. I've spoken out against all of the immigration issues of the European Union and the UK before on X and on other platforms because I've been noticing it for 2 years now. To think that I would make a post and then have to have a platform come by and say, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. That's your freedom of speech. You're actually correct in what you're saying, but some of the politicians of the country that you're bashing on our platform didn't like what you had to say, so your post is being removed. Unacceptable. That's just my thoughts and opinions on it, though. Let me know what you think down in the comments below.